We're going to go ahead and talk about how to hire a dog trainer. Now, it's important to know what you are trying to teach your dog, if it's just basic skills or service dog training, therapy training, excuse me, working dog, if you just want a family pet. Before you go into calling a bunch of trainers, there are several websites, and I'll link some below, where you can go to look up some dog training information. Now, this is from the American College of Veterinarian Behavioralists. This is a guide for pet parents. So some of the language in here, when they describe like pet owner, I will be saying pet parent. I don't own my dogs, and I don't refer to other human beings as owning a living organism as property. So parents is the best description I give. So it advises the pet parents to call, interview, and ideally observe a trainer before hiring them. This is very important. You need to see what your trainer's bedside manner is, so to speak. And these are all things that you should be aware of, because I have another video that's going to be coming out explaining the lack of dog training regulations and laws specifically forbidding certain training methods and shit like that. So it's very important to know what the warning signs are to make sure you don't get that type of trainer. So number 1, the equipment recommended for basic obedience includes or is focused on choke collars, prong collars, or choke or shock collars. This is also kind of known as e-collars or stimulating collars. It's all bullshit, so please don't get a trainer that will use this. Number 2, trainers who ban head collars of any kind may rely unduly on force. Okay, so this is a gentle leader. There are other collars on the market, but I don't personally like to use this because quite a few people don't have patience, period. But they really don't have patience when they're trying to put this on their dog and trying to get their dog kind of acclimated to it before you actually go on a walk. So it's sort of like putting a muzzle on. It goes around the nose area, and also goes around the neck. That actually has a clamp thing. And the part that goes around the nose is actually attached to the, right here, the leash. So your leash pulls down, and you're supposed to do it gently. That's why they call it a gentle leader. And it's supposed to bring your dog's nose down so they can't jump, they can't lunge, they can still bark, I suppose. But it still allows them to pant and drool, drink water, eat treats, stuff like that. But it's very important to understand how to, put it on, how to apply it. Because if you put it on wrong, and I've seen people on these shows do it wrong too, and then in person, they're not putting the harness on right, or, they lack patience. Some people lack patience with themselves as well. So not particularly fond of teaching with that. If somebody seems to have like common sense and patience, I will teach them how to put this on if they want to, but I don't force anybody to use certain equipment. 3, the trainer instructs you to manage your dog's behaviors by pinching toes, kneeing the dog in the chest or abdomen, hitting the dog, forcibly holding the dog down against their will, constantly yelling at the dog, frequently yanking the dog, the collar. They're all pet peeves of mine, but that's got to be the worst one. Or using prong, choke, pinch, shock collars, or electric stimulation collars. I once had, you sign a piece of paper when you come in to the training class. I no longer work at PetSmart, but when I did, you had to sign a paper, a form, and you're supposed to read it first, right? lot of people wouldn't read it, and they'd come to the goddamn training class with dogs in either shock collars, prong collars, or even choke chains, and I'd have to tell them to remove it before class because you agreed not to use these things in class. That's not the type of training I do, and that's not the type of training that PetSmart does. Now, there was this one guy, this poor dog. He came in, and you can usually tell the ones you're going to have a difficulty with based on their behavior and the things they say, and you know. I wasn't expecting him to come to class, the next class, because he came the first class, and it looked like he was just wearing a regular collar. This guy, this little pit bull. And I worked with pit bulls before. I've never had a problem with them. They're outstanding, but they are powerful. So you need to know what the fuck you're getting into. If you don't have the physical strength and you don't have the patience, you are not going to be able to deal with a pit bull right off the bat, especially a puppy. This was an adolescent. So he was between 6 and 18 months. I can't remember the exact age, but that's a great age. I love that age. Not everybody can handle that age. But anyways, he came in and he had a prong collar and a fucking shock collar on. I was so goddamn pissed. I didn't even know what I was supposed to do right then. I just took a breath and I went over there and I made sure that I was right first. I said, I can't remember the dog's name, but I was like, do you have, is he wearing a shock collar and a prong collar? Do you remember signing the form that said that we don't agree to that here? And, I brought him the piece of paper, where he signed just to make sure that he understood that he agreed to it, even though he may not have read it. But later on, after that, I started reading the paper before I had them sign it. But anyways, I read it to them. So they wouldn't act like they didn't know what the fuck was going on. Because he's not the only one that did it, but Jesus Christ. Why would you have your dog and he tried to give me some goddamn lame excuse that, well, I use it when the dog tries to jump on the fence. And I'm like, well, I don't see any goddamn fences. And that's not how you really train your dog not to jump the goddamn fence. Usually you try to make it, okay, we're not going to go into that right now. We're not going to go into that. I'm just going to explain how to find a dog trainer. So, all that shit. I have never seen anybody pinch the dog's toes. I'm really confused on that one. Everything else, unfortunately, I've seen. Number 4, the trainer believes most or all training is about encouraging the person to be alpha and teaching the dog to submit. Warning sign right there. Just a little hint to why this is bad. It's incorrect. That's where we start. It's incorrect. Secondly, it's absolutely nonsensical and it's unnecessary. There was some research done back in the 70s or 60s, I can't remember, by a doctor named Dr. David Meach. And he actually did his research on wolves, not dogs. And he does go, every time he has a dog trainer that wants to interview him, if there's a recording of it that I've seen it, he always is very adamant on telling him, I study wolves, not dogs. But they still not getting it. Anyways, his research did use the term alpha, but he was referring to the breeding male and breeding female, which means parents of a family unit. And I don't know where the hell the disconnect, like they didn't understand that, but they just took that shit and ran with it. But they ran with it very wrong. Like I notice a lot of people do that these days. Like they don't actually look up shit in the dictionary anymore. They just put definitions to terms they want it to be. I don't get it. But that's bullshit. And submit is usually not submitting. It's the dog appeasing, trying to do whatever is necessary to get the fucking behavior that you're giving them to stop, the torture to stop. So that's not submission. I will go into body language at another time. It's vital that I do. that I teach you what you're looking at, because a lot of you don't know. So 5, the trainer explains that most dog behavior, for example, jumping on people, occurs because the dog is trying to be dominant. That's another fucking word I can't stand. I wish it would be wiped from the goddamn earth. Dominant? Again, it's not a real term describing animal behavior. Animals behave for a reason. It's not because they're trying to dominate or rule. Not in the sense that we think. That's not it. They're not trying to rule. They're not trying... God damn it. That hurt. So if somebody uses that, especially for jumping up, as a reason for a dog to jump up is because they're trying to dominate you, it's fucking ludicrous. And if you believe that shit, you should have your head examined. 6, a trainer recommends alpha rolls, scruffing, helicoptering, choking, goddamn, or any other painful or physical methods as a means of training or modifying behavior. Again, it's not modifying behavior. It's not behavior modification. What they're doing is they are encouraging behavior submission. Not submission. What is the word I'm looking? Suppression. Behavior suppression. So I know how this feels firsthand because I was abused as a child. So when this happens, you just kind of pull into yourself, draw into yourself. You don't do anything because everything you do, you get punished for. Doesn't matter what the fuck it is. They can tell you exactly what they want and you do it exactly that way, and yet you still get punished for it. So I've seen people relate that same ideology to dogs, and it fucking triggers the fuck out of me. And as a dog trainer, you don't want to be triggered by that kind of behavior because, unfortunately, like I said, it is so fucking common. All right. Please note that having initials after one's name is not a guarantee of a trainer who will not engage in these practices. Absolutely. To maximize the chances of recommending or using a qualified trainer, the dog parent will need to ask the trainer some basic information and see for themselves how the trainer treats the dogs in the classes and consultations. I always recommended consultations when I spoke directly to people, either on the phone or in person, if they didn't have their dog with them, because I need to observe the behavior for myself. Most people leave out and omit a lot of information that's vital to knowing what's really going on in the situation. They omit a lot of things that'll make them look guilty of either causing the behavior or reinforcing the behavior. And I'm here to tell you that's going to happen. That's going to happen. Most people don't know what they're getting into when they get a dog. And they make a lot of mistakes. And it's not me. I'm not here to make you feel bad about that. I just want you to be aware of it. So when I'm observing what's going on, I'm not being personal. Like, I don't give a fuck. I'm telling you what I see and what I can prove so we can get on the same page on how we're going to resolve the issue, the behavior. And most of the time it's not really an issue. It's normal behavior, especially for that developmental stage, because I get a lot of people who are in puppy class, and then once their dog starts to go 5 to 6 months and they start hitting adolescence, they become more aware of their surroundings, and the dog will bark more and jump more and be more rambunctious, and just a little bit less tolerable to the person, or they're shocked or scared at the behavior, and it's usually just normal behavior. Like, I always have to reassure them when I'm talking about it. It just sounds, they're just doing this and this. Okay, well, that sounds normal. There's nothing wrong with your dog. We can get that working for you. We can figure out something come in so-and-so time. So we'd set up a consultation. Now, classes, I really don't like people to stand and watch creepily at us doing class, because a lot of times the dogs unfortunately are not taken out in public regularly, so they're very overstimulated as it is, and when they see people just staring at them, they get a little uncomfortable and they will start displaying it physically, and it can be quite disruptive to class. So I don't really like that. If I had more control over that, if I did have more control over that, that would have been a hell of a lot better. But PetSmart is all about selling first. So they want people to watch the classes so they can sell more classes. But it's not always the best environment for every dog or every pet parent. Should your dog ever start to show signs of aggression, fear, anxiety, distress, or any other condition that you find worrisome during training, let your veterinarian know. If you ever feel uncomfortable with something the trainer asks you to do to your dog, stop working with that trainer and alert your veterinarian so they can give you guidance. Most veterinarians will not recommend one trainer over the other if there's kind of a high competition in the area or whatever. But if there's only like a handful of trainers, they will. Sometimes they may recommend somebody they know, but it's best to do some shopping in that. You know, don't go with the first trainer you meet or the first trainer that you hear something good. You know, here's another thing that is not on here. We'll just say it's number 7. If the dog trainer tells you that your dog is the problem and you have done nothing wrong, that's a lie. Okay? They are not to be trusted. Because as I just described before, a lot of you don't know what the hell you're doing. Or you think you know what you're doing because you've had 20 dogs before. But not all dogs are the same. Missy, that little shit in the bedroom, she was unlike any dog I've ever had. I've worked with dogs like this, but I've never actually had one. And let me tell you, it can be stressful. You can dread leaving your apartment or your house because your dog's behavior is so overwhelming and people get the wrong idea. They look at you like you should be controlling your dog and you know that dog is aggressive and it's just dangerous. And no, usually it's not. Can it have the potential? Absolutely, especially if you don't know what the fuck you're doing. So I got her when I was about 4 months into training, being a trainer. Yes, me being a trainer. So it was a huge help, but also a wake-up call that you can't judge all dogs equally, and your dog may learn at a faster speed than others, or maybe it's just the methods they're using that they're getting a lot faster. So there's different methods with positive reinforcement training. So I've never failed to teach a dog. I have failed, unfortunately, to teach a human. But I am working as a private contractor now, so I have more time and ability to tailor a training plan or management plan or both with the client. But I think that's what ideally people want to do, because they want to have more control over what is being taught and not just go by, you know, a curriculum. Curriculums are great, but I'll be real honest when it comes to training classes. Puppies, although they can be a challenge because they're short attention spans and the fact that they are becoming aware of things that they weren't aware before, and they want to play, and they just have a very short attention span. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're best in a class environment, but people seem to be more relaxed with puppies than they do fully grown dogs that are misbehaving. I don't use these words because they're not. They don't even know how you expect them to behave, so they can't misbehave. But you know, I don't like to use obedience and those kind of words aimed towards dogs, anyways. But it's very important to understand that yes, you're going to make mistakes. I'm here to help you not make huge ones, and to understand your dog. And the fact that you brought a dog home, you didn't bring a robot, you didn't bring a human being, you didn't bring anything but a dog home. And now it's your job to give them space to acclimate, especially if you adopt or rescue or you just find a dog on the side of the road. Unfortunately, that happens far too fucking often. But that's where I have to go back to patience. You have to be patient. Missy had been brought back several times to the shelter, and the shelter staff were so pissed because they explained everything to these people that would take her home and be like, yeah, you know, it ain't gonna be a big deal. Again, thinking because they had 20,000 dogs, they know how to deal with this dog, and that's not fair. That's not fair. You shouldn't be comparing your dog to another dog, period. That's like comparing your children to other children. I mean, that's fucked up. Stop doing that shit. had to have patience. I had to have creativity. I had to have strength. I had to make sure that my feelings internally did not leach out to her, because I didn't want her to get anxious because I was anxious. And they will. They will read the room, and that'll determine how they behave, unfortunately. So she was afraid of everything, afraid of every goddamn thing. But if you looked at her based on her behavior, you think she's just aggressive. No, sweetheart, that's not what it was. So you have to be very careful in labeling dogs. And if you are a bystander, shut the fuck up. Okay? Just shut the fuck up. If you can't say something inspirational and polite, get the fuck away, because you're just making the situation worse for that pet parent and that dog. And we don't need to hear your fucking shit anyways, because most of the time, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Holy shit. Holy shit. All right. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, you can rewatch this or go to the goddamn website for the American College of Veterinary Behavioralist. You can also look up the definition of what the fuck that is up there.